The space station called Illyria Prime was the largest thing ever built by any living creature in the galaxy. It floated in the empty space between three ancient star systems, belonging to no one and everyone at the same time. Every 100 years, the great powers of the galaxy gathered here to talk, to argue, and to make deals that would shape the next century. Park Do-hwan pressed his face against the small window of his transport ship and felt his breath catch in his throat. The station looked like a city made of crystal and light, spinning slowly against the blackness of space. Thousands of ships moved around it like fireflies around the lantern. Some were bigger than mountains. His own ship was so small that the station's guides almost did not notice it. "First time seeing it?" asked the pilot, an old woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Do-hwan nodded. He was 29 years old, born and raised in a small town near the sea in Korea. 3 years ago, he had joined Earth's Space Division as a translator. Now he was going to the most important meeting in the galaxy as a junior assistant. His job was to carry bags and take notes. Nothing more. "It is beautiful," he said quietly. The pilot laughed. "Wait until you get inside. Beautiful and terrifying. Every species you can imagine is in there. Some of them think humans are barely more than clever animals." Do-hwan knew this already. Humanity had discovered faster than light travel only 40 years ago. In galactic terms, they were babies learning to walk. The older species had been crossing the stars for thousands of years. Some of them had been building empires. When humans were still living in caves, the ship docked at a small port on the outer edge of the station. Do-hwan collected his single bag and stepped through the airlock into Illyria Prime. The air smelled strange, like flowers and metal mixed together. The corridor was wide enough for creatures much larger than humans, and the ceiling disappeared into shadow far above his head. Lights of different colors moved along the walls, guiding visitors to their destinations. Do-hwan was supposed to follow the blue lights to the human delegation's quarters. But the station was crowded with thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds. Tall creatures with too many arms pushed past him. Small floating spheres hummed around his head. A group of beings that looked like walking trees blocked the entire corridor while they argued in a language that sounded like breaking glass. He tried to follow the blue lights, but they kept disappearing behind larger bodies. After 20 minutes of walking, he realized he was completely lost. The corridors here were quieter. The walls were made of something that looked like white marble, and the air smelled like spring rain. Soft music played from somewhere he could not see. This did not look like the common areas of the station. This looked like somewhere important. Somewhere he should not be. Do-hwan turned to go back, but all the corridors looked the same. He chose a direction and walked, hoping to find someone who could help him. Instead, he found a garden. It was the most beautiful place he had ever seen. Trees with silver leaves grew beside pools of water that glowed with soft golden light. Flowers of every color bloomed along winding paths. The ceiling above was made of glass, showing the stars beyond like scattered diamonds. And sitting alone beside a fountain of liquid light was a woman. She wore simple, gray robes with a hood that covered most of her face. Her hands rested in her lap, and she sat very still, as if she was thinking about something far away. Do-hwan could not see her features clearly, but something about her posture made him think she was sad. He knew he should leave. This was clearly a private place, and he was clearly not supposed to be here. But something made him hesitate. She looked so alone. "Excuse me," he said in Galactic Common, the simple language that most species use to communicate. His accent was terrible, but he tried his best. "I am sorry to disturb you. I am lost. Can you help me find the common areas?" The woman turned her head toward him. He still could not see her face beneath the hood, but he felt her attention like sunlight on his skin. "You are human," she said. Her voice was soft and musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Yes," Dowan said, suddenly embarrassed. "I am new here. This is my first time on the station. I followed the wrong lights, and now I do not know where I am." "You are in the Alandari Garden," she said. "Humans are not allowed here." Dowan felt his face grow hot. "I am very sorry. I did not know. I will leave immediately." He bowed, the way his grandmother had taught him to bow when apologizing. "Wait," the woman said. He stopped. "You are the first person to enter this garden in 3 days," she said. "Everyone else knows it is forbidden. Are you truly just lost, or did you come here for another reason?" Dowan shook his head. "I promise I am just lost. I am nobody important. I am just an assistant who cannot read a map." He smiled weakly. "My grandmother always said I could get lost in my own house." The woman was quiet for a moment. Then she made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your grandmother sounds wise," she said. "She is the wisest person I know," Dawan agreed. "She raised me after my parents died. She taught me everything important. What did she teach you?" The question surprised him. He thought about it seriously, the way his grandmother had taught him to think about all questions. "She taught me that kindness costs nothing but means everything," he said finally. "She taught me that every person has a story, and most people just want someone to listen. She taught me that the size of your heart matters more than the size of your house." The woman was silent for a long moment. "Would you sit with me for a while?" she asked. "I have been alone for a very long time, and I find that I would like some company." Dowan hesitated. He would be in trouble if anyone found him here. His superiors would be angry. He might lose his job, but she sounded so lonely. And his grandmother had always told him that when someone asks for company, you should give it if you can. "Of course," he said, and sat down on the edge of the fountain beside her. Neither of them knew that this simple choice would change the fate of the entire galaxy. They sat together in the garden for what felt like hours. The woman asked questions, and Dowan answered them. He did not know why he felt so comfortable talking to this stranger, but something about her made him want to be honest. "Tell me about your world," she said. "I have never been to Earth." Dowan smiled. "It is a small planet, mostly covered in water. We have one moon that controls our tides. Our sun is yellow, and it makes our sky blue during the day." He paused, thinking about home. "We have so many different places. Mountains covered in snow, deserts made of sand, forests so thick you cannot see the sky, and the ocean goes on forever, blue and green and gray, always moving." "It sounds chaotic," she said. "It is," Dawan agreed. "But it is beautiful chaos. Every part of Earth is different. Every country, every city, every village has its own way of living. We have thousands of languages and thousands of ways of cooking food and thousands of kinds of music. That must cause many conflicts." Dawan nodded sadly. "It does. Humans fight each other all the time. We have wars over land, over resources, over ideas. Sometimes we fight over things that do not matter at all." He looked down at his hands. "But we also love each other. We build families and communities. We take care of strangers. We create art and music and stories. We are not perfect, but we try to be better." The woman tilted her head slightly. "You speak of your species with both shame and pride." "Because I feel both," Dawan said honestly. "I am ashamed of our wars and our cruelty, but I am proud of our courage and our kindness. We are small and weak compared to most species in the galaxy. Our lives are very short, but we fill those short lives with as much love as we can." "How long do humans live?" "About 80 years, if we are lucky. Some live longer, some shorter." The woman was silent for a moment. That is very brief. I know, Do-hwan said. That is why we love so fiercely. We do not have time to waste. She turned to face him more fully. Tell me about love. Human love. Do-hwan felt his cheeks grow warm. That is a big question. I have time. He thought about his grandmother Yoonji, sitting in her small house by the sea. He thought about the way she smiled when she made him breakfast. The way she held his hand when he was scared. The way she listened to his problems as if they were the most important things in the universe. My grandmother is 93 years old, he said. She has lived through wars and peace, through poverty and comfort. She lost her husband when she was young. She lost her daughter, my mother, in an accident. She has every reason to be bitter and angry at the world. He smiled softly. But she is not. She is the kindest person I have ever known. She feeds stray cats and helps her neighbors carry groceries. She remembers everyone's birthday. She cries at sad movies and laughs at silly jokes. She loves completely and without reservation. Even though she has been hurt so many times? Because she has been hurt so many times, Do-hwan said. She told me once that love is not something you run out of. The more you give, the more you have. The people she loved are gone, but her love for them is still alive. It changed shape, but it did not disappear. The woman was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, almost vulnerable. I have lived for a very long time, she said. Longer than you can imagine. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched stars die. I have been worshipped and feared and desired by more beings than I can count. Do-hwan did not know what to say, so he said nothing. He just listened. But I have never been loved, she continued. Not truly. Everyone who comes to me wants something. My power, my beauty, my bloodline. They do not see me. They see what I can give them. That sounds very lonely, Do-hwan said. It is. She turned toward the fountain, watching the liquid light dance. I have forgotten what it feels like to be seen as a person instead of a prize. Do-hwan felt a strange pain in his chest. He did not know this woman. He did not even know her name. But he recognized her sadness. It was the same sadness he had felt as a child, alone and scared after his parents died, wanting someone to see him as more than an orphan to be pitied. I see you, he said quietly. She turned back to him. What do you see? I see someone who is tired. Someone who has been alone for too long. Someone who came to this garden to escape, even for a little while. He shrugged. I see a person who wanted company. That is all. And that is enough. The woman made that sound again, the one that might have been a laugh. But this time, it sounded like she was also crying. You are a strange human, Park Do-hwan. My grandmother would agree with you. She reached up and pushed her hood back slightly. Do-hwan caught a glimpse of her face in the soft light. She was beautiful, but not in any way he could describe. Her features seemed to shift like reflections on water. Her skin glowed faintly, like moonlight captured in glass. He looked away quickly, feeling like he had seen something private. You did not stare, she said. Surprised, my grandmother taught me that staring is rude. She laughed again, and this time it was a real laugh. Your grandmother taught you many things. She is a very good teacher. They sat together in comfortable silence for a while. Do-hwan told her about cherry blossoms in spring, how they fell like pink snow. He told her about the sound of ocean waves and the smell of rain on hot pavement. He told her about his grandmother's cooking, about warm soup on cold nights and sweet rice cakes on holidays. She listened to everything. She asked questions about small things, unimportant things, everyday things. What did rain feel like? What did cherry blossoms smell like? What songs did his grandmother sing? Finally, she stood up. I must go. The conclave begins tomorrow, and I have duties to attend to. Dawan stood as well. I should find my way back too. My superiors will be worried. She looked at him for a long moment. Thank you, Park Dawan, for your company, for your stories, for seeing me. Thank you for listening to me talk about cherry blossoms for an hour, he said with a small smile. Most people find that boring. I found it wonderful. She turned to leave, then paused. Will you be at the Grand Hall tomorrow? For the opening ceremony? I will be there, Dawan said. Somewhere in the back, carrying bags. Good, she said. I hope we will meet again. She walked away down a path he had not noticed before. The silver leaves of the trees seemed to bow as she passed, and the flowers turned their faces toward her like she was the sun. Dawan watched her go, wondering who she was. She had never told him her name. It did not matter, he decided. Whoever she was, he was glad he had met her. He was glad he had gotten lost. He found a station guide who helped him reach the human quarters. His superiors were annoyed that he was late, but he apologized and promised to do better. That night, lying in his small room, he thought about the woman in the garden. He hoped she was not so lonely anymore. He had no idea that he would see her again the very next day, and that everything would change. The Grand Hall of Aloria Prime was designed to hold 10,000 beings from across the galaxy. Today, every seat was filled. Representatives from 3,000 species sat in sections arranged by their home regions, their translators buzzing with 100 different languages. The air hummed with anticipation. Dawan stood at the very back of the human section, exactly where he belonged. He held a datapad and a bag of supplies, ready to fetch anything his superiors needed. Around him, the other human diplomats talked quietly about trade agreements and territory disputes. No one paid attention to the junior assistant, but Dawan was not paying attention to politics. He was looking around the hall with wide eyes, amazed at the diversity of life in the galaxy. He saw beings made of living crystal. He saw creatures that floated through the air like clouds. He saw giants and insects and things he could not even describe. The universe was so much bigger than he had ever imagined. A gong sounded, deep and resonant, silencing the crowd. The lights dimmed everywhere except at the front of the hall, where a massive stage rose from the floor. Representatives from the oldest and most powerful species stepped forward to give their opening speeches. The Vorthani spoke first. They were tall warriors with 4 arms and scales like polished bronze. Their ambassador talked about strength and honor, about the importance of military alliances. The collective spoke next. They were a hive mind, millions of small creatures that thought together as one. Their speaker was a swarm that took a vaguely humanoid shape. They talked about unity and cooperation, about the benefits of joining together. The Dominion followed. They were ancient beings who ruled 12 star systems. Their prince was handsome in a cold, perfect way, and he spoke about tradition and bloodlines. One by one, the great powers made their presentations. Dawan listened with half an ear, still looking around the hall, still amazed by everything he saw. Then the lights changed. Every light in the hall went out, except for a single beam that shone on the main entrance. The crowd fell absolutely silent. Dawan felt the air grow thick with something he could not name. Expectation, reverence, fear. A figure appeared in the doorway. She was tall, taller than any human, moving with a grace that made walking look like dancing. Her skin glowed like polished moonstone, shifting with colors that had no names. Her hair flowed behind her like rivers of captured starlight, moving even though there was no wind. Her face was so beautiful that looking at her directly was almost painful, like staring at the sun. She wore robes of liquid silver that seemed to be made of light itself. A crown of floating crystals orbited her head like a personal constellation. With each step she took, the floor beneath her feet shimmered. Queen Yuna of the Alandari had arrived. Doan felt his heart stop. He knew that face. He knew that grace. He had sat beside her in a garden just yesterday, talking about cherry blossoms and his grandmother's cooking. The woman in the gray hood. The lonely stranger who had asked for company. She was the queen of the Alandari, the most beautiful being in the known galaxy, ruler of the oldest civilization in existence. And he had talked to her about rain and rice cakes for an hour. He felt dizzy. His legs went weak. Around him, the entire hall had fallen to their knees in respect. Even the proud Vorthani warriors bowed their heads. Even the Dominion Prince knelt. Doan should kneel too. But he could not move. He could only stare as the queen walked, past rows of worshipping diplomats toward the stage at the front. She stopped. 10,000 beings held their breath as the queen turned and looked over the crowd. Her eyes, bright as twin stars, scanned the hall slowly, looking for something, looking for someone. They found Doan. Even from across the massive hall, he felt her gaze like a physical touch. She saw him standing frozen at the back of the human section, too shocked to kneel, too confused to bow. She saw him, and she smiled. Then she began to walk toward him. The crowd erupted in whispers. What was happening? Why was the queen walking away from the stage? Why was she moving toward the back of the hall, toward the section where the youngest and least important species sat? She walked past the Vorthani warriors, past the collective swarm, past the Dominion Prince, who stared at her with confusion and anger. She walked past thousands of representatives who had prepared for years to meet her. She stopped in front of Park Doan. "We meet again," she said, and her voice carried through the entire hall without effort. Doan tried to speak. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The queen reached out and took his hand. Her touch was warm like sunlight on a spring morning. She turned to face the hall, pulling him gently forward so that everyone could see. "I have been asked to choose," she announced. Her voice was calm and clear. "The conclave wished to know if I would take a mate. Many have offered themselves. Warriors and princes. Genetic perfection and military might. 12 star systems and the promise of power." She looked at Doan with eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies. "I choose this one," she said. "This human. Park Doan of Earth. He is my mate." The hall exploded. 10,000 beings began shouting at once. The Vorthani ambassador jumped to his feet, bellowing about insult and dishonor. The Dominion Prince slammed his fist against his throne. The collective swarm buzzed so loudly that translators overloaded and shut down. Ambassadors from a dozen species rushed toward the stage, demanding explanations. Through it all, Queen Yuna stood perfectly still, holding Doan's hand. Doan finally found his voice. "What?" he whispered. She looked at him with something like amusement. "I said you are my mate. But I am nobody. I carry bags. I take notes. I got lost in your garden." "Yes," she agreed. "You got lost in my garden. And then you sat with me and told me about your grandmother's kindness and how cherry blossoms fall like pink snow. You listened to me talk about loneliness without asking for anything in return. You saw me as a person, not as a prize. I did not know who you were. That is precisely the point." She squeezed his hand gently. "Everyone else in this hall wants my power, my beauty, my bloodline. You just wanted to help a lost stranger find her way. Do you understand how rare that is? Do you understand what that means?" Doan shook his head. He did not understand. He did not understand anything. Around them, the chaos continued. Security forces tried to maintain order. Diplomats shouted and argued. A small war nearly broke out between the Vorthani and the Dominion over who had been insulted more. But Queen Yuna ignored it all. She looked only at Dowan. I have waited 300 years to find someone who would see me as something other than a crown to be won, she said softly, too quietly for anyone else to hear. And I found him in a junior diplomat who got lost looking for his quarters. She smiled, and for a moment, she looked exactly like the lonely woman in the garden. The galaxy will not like this, Dowan managed to say. The galaxy will adapt, she replied. They always do. She turned back to face the hall, raising her free hand for silence. Slowly, painfully slowly, the crowd quieted down. I have made my choice, she announced. Any who wish to challenge it may speak now. The hall fell silent. No one dared to challenge the Queen of the Alandari, no matter how angry they were. Then it is decided, she said. Let the conclave continue. She kept hold of Dohan's hand as she walked toward the stage. He followed in a daze, aware that every eye in the galaxy was watching him. The universe would never be the same. The hours that followed were the most chaotic in the history of the Galactic Conclave. Dowan was taken from the Grand Hall by Alandari guards before the crowd could reach him. He was placed in a private room somewhere deep in the station, away from the angry delegations that demanded his head. He sat alone on a chair made of something softer than any material on Earth, staring at his hands. The same hands that had helped his grandmother wash dishes. The same hands that had carried bags for diplomats. The same hands that a queen had chosen to hold in front of the entire galaxy. Nothing made sense. Outside his room, he could hear shouting. Hundreds of voices speaking hundreds of languages, all of them angry. The translation device in his ear picked up fragments of the chaos. The Vorthani were threatening war. They claimed the queen had insulted their entire species by choosing a human over their warrior prince. Their ambassador declared that human blood would pay for this shame. The collective demanded a full investigation. They insisted that the human must have used some kind of mind control technology. No natural being could influence an Alandari. There had to be cheating involved. The Dominion claimed the selection was invalid. Their ancient laws said that mates must be chosen through proper ceremony, with proper gifts, following proper tradition. A human who wandered into a garden and told stories did not count. A dozen other species filed formal complaints. They accused Earth of secret manipulation. They demanded the human be handed over for testing. They threatened trade sanctions and military action. After 3 hours, guards came to take Dohan away again. They led him through empty corridors to a medical facility where beings in white robes waited with machines he did not recognize. We need to examine you, one of them said, to prove you did not cheat. Dowan nodded. He had nothing to hide. They scanned his body with beams of light. They took samples of his blood and his hair and his skin. They pressed devices against his head to measure his thoughts. They looked for implants, for modifications, for any technology that should not be there. They found nothing. He is completely ordinary, the chief medical officer announced to the waiting diplomats. Her voice sounded almost disappointed. No genetic modifications. No technological enhancements. No psychic abilities. He's just a standard human male. That is impossible, the collective representative buzzed. A standard human cannot attract an Alandari. They are different species. There is no biological basis for attraction. And yet, the medical officer said, here we are. The Vorthani ambassador pushed forward. Then it must be manipulation. Perhaps the human used pheromones or chemicals. Perhaps he poisoned her mind. We tested for everything, the medical officer replied. There is no evidence of manipulation of any kind. Then how? The Dominion Prince demanded. How did this insignificant creature capture the attention of the Queen? No one had an answer. Dowan was taken back to his room. He waited for more hours, alone with his thoughts. He kept expecting to wake up. This had to be a dream. Things like this did not happen to ordinary people. A door opened, and Queen Yuna entered. She looked different now. She had changed from her formal robes into something simpler, though still beautiful. Without her crown and her attendants, she looked more like the woman he had met in the garden. She looked tired. "The galaxy is not happy with us," she said, sitting down across from him. I noticed. Dohan tried to smile, but failed. "Why did you do this?" "You could have chosen anyone. You could have chosen someone important, someone powerful." "Why me?" "I told you in the hall. You told me that I saw you as a person. But many people must see you as a person." "No." Her voice was firm. "No one does. They see my beauty, and they want to possess it. They see my power, and they want to use it. They see my bloodline, and they want to continue it. No one sees me." She leaned forward, her strange eyes fixed on his. "When you found me in the garden, you thought I was a servant, a lost attendant. You could have ignored me. You could have asked for directions and left. Instead, you apologized for disturbing me and offered to help me find my way. You sat with me and talked about your grandmother and your planet and cherry blossoms. I was just being polite. Polite." She laughed softly. "Do you know how many beings would kill for a moment of my attention? Do you know how many have begged and bribed and threatened just to speak with me? And you sat beside me and apologized for taking up my time." Dowan did not know what to say. "I asked you what you would die for," she continued. "You said you would die for the people you love. I asked what you would live for. You said you would live for the hope that tomorrow might be better than today." She shook her head. "I have lived for 3,000 years. I have heard a million answers to those questions. None of them were like yours. What did others say? Power, glory, conquest, legacy. They all wanted something eternal, something that would outlast their bodies." She smiled sadly. "You wanted tomorrow. Just tomorrow. Such a small, simple hope." A noise came from outside. Shouting again, louder this time. "The Alandari Council is not happy either," Queen Yuna said. "They have summoned me to explain my choice. Will you go?" "I must. They are my people." She stood up and walked to the door. Then she paused and looked back at him. "They will try to convince me to change my mind. They will present arguments about genetics and politics and tradition. They will tell me that choosing a human is foolish and dangerous. Maybe they are right," Dohan said quietly. "Maybe," she tilted her head. "But I've been wise for 3,000 years, and it has brought me nothing but loneliness. Perhaps it is time to try foolishness instead." She left, and Dohan was alone again. Hours passed. He tried to sleep but could not. His mind kept spinning, trying to make sense of the impossible. He was a junior diplomat from a small country on a young planet. He had no special skills, no great achievements, no remarkable features. He was exactly what the medical tests had shown, ordinary, and yet a queen had chosen him. The door opened again, and this time Queen Yuna entered with fire in her eyes. Her calm was gone, replaced by something that looked like triumph. "It is done," she said. "What did you tell them?" "I told them the truth." She sat down again, and now she was smiling. "I told them that for 3,000 years, the Alandari have worshipped perfection. We have pursued beauty and power and purity until we have become living statues. Beautiful but empty. Perfect but cold." She reached out and took his hand, just as she had in the grand hall. "I told them that you showed me more genuine warmth in 1 hour than I have received in 3 centuries. I told them that your kindness was more valuable than all the gifts and promises offered by greater powers. I told them that if they could not understand why I chose you, then perhaps they had forgotten what it meant to be truly alive." Dawan stared at her. "And they accepted that?" "They had no choice." Her smile widened. "I am the queen. My word is law. If I say a human is worthy, then a human is worthy." She squeezed his hand. Now there is only one question left to answer. What question? Whether you will accept me in return. Do-hwan felt his heart stop for the second time in 2 days. You have a choice, she said softly. You can refuse. I will not force you. I will announce that I was mistaken, and you can return to your life as if this never happened. And if I accept, then we face the galaxy together. She looked at him with those star-bright eyes. It will not be easy. Many will hate you. Many will try to hurt you. Your life will never be simple again. Do-hwan thought about his grandmother. He thought about cherry blossoms and ocean waves and rain on hot pavement. He thought about a lonely woman in a garden who just wanted someone to see her. Can I have some time to think? Queen Yuna nodded. You have 3 days. After that, I must give my answer to the conclave. She stood up and moved toward the door. Yuna, he said. Using her name for the first time, God, she stopped. Thank you for giving me a choice. She smiled again, and for a moment, the most powerful being in the galaxy looked like a young girl receiving an unexpected gift. Thank you for using my name, she said. Then she was gone, and Do-hwan was left with the biggest decision of his life. On the first day, Do-hwan paced his room until his legs hurt. He could not eat. He could not sleep. He kept thinking about all the reasons he should refuse. He was nobody. He had nothing to offer a queen. The galaxy hated him already, and accepting would only make things worse. He would spend the rest of his life surrounded by beings who thought he was a fraud or a fool. He would never see Earth again, not really. He would never have a normal life. These were good reasons. Logical reasons. Smart reasons. On the second day, the human delegation sent a representative to speak with him. Ambassador Kim was a serious woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been a diplomat for 40 years, and she understood politics better than anyone Do-hwan knew. The other delegations are offering us deals, she said. If you refuse the Queen, they will reward Earth greatly. Trade agreements, technology transfers, military protection. We could advance 100 years overnight. Do-hwan nodded slowly. And if I accept, then we gain nothing. Ambassador Kim hesitated. Or we gain everything. It is hard to predict. No human has ever been in this position before. What do you think I should do? The ambassador was quiet for a long moment. I think you should do what is right, whatever that means to you. She left, and Do-hwan was alone again, that night. He managed to contact Earth. It took several hours to establish a connection strong enough for video. But finally his grandmother's face appeared on the screen. Yoonji looked exactly the same as always. Small and wrinkled and kind. She was sitting in her living room, the same room where she had raised him after his parents died. Behind her, he could see the window that looked out at the sea. My grandson, she said, smiling. You look tired. Grandmother. His voice broke slightly. I do not know what to do. Tell me everything. So he did. He told her about getting lost and finding the garden. He told her about the lonely woman in the gray hood. He told her about the Grand Hall and the declaration and the chaos that followed. He told her about the choice he had to make. Yoonji listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a while. Do you remember what I told you when you were young? She finally asked. After your parents died, when you were scared and alone? You told me many things. I told you that the universe is very big and very strange, but love makes it smaller. Love connects us to each other across any distance. She smiled gently. I also told you that when you find someone who makes you feel like you are exactly where you are supposed to be, you should hold on and never let go. Do-hwan felt tears forming in his eyes. I barely know her. You knew enough to sit with her in a garden and talk about cherry blossoms. You knew enough to see her loneliness. You knew enough to treat her like a person when everyone else treated her like a prize. Yunji leaned forward. What did you feel when you were with her? He thought about it. He thought about sitting beside the fountain of light, talking about rain and rice cakes. He thought about her laugh, like wind chimes in a storm. He thought about the way she listened to him, really listened, as if his words were precious. I felt like I was home, he admitted. Yunji nodded. Then, you already know your answer. But what about all the problems? The politics, the danger, the fact that we are different species? My grandson, I have lived for 93 years. I have learned that problems come no matter what choices you make. The question is not whether there will be problems. The question is who you want beside you when you face them. She reached out and touched the screen, as if she could touch his face. The universe rarely gives us moments of true connection. When it does, we must be brave enough to accept them. You have always been too humble, my grandson. Maybe the galaxy sees what you cannot. Do-hwan wiped his eyes. I love you, grandmother. I love you too. Now go make your choice. And whatever happens, know that I am proud of you. The connection ended, and Do-hwan sat in the darkness, thinking. On the third day, he made his decision. The grand hall was full again. Every seat was taken. The same 10,000 beings who had witnessed the Queen's declaration now waited to hear the outcome. The air was thick with tension. Do-hwan stood at the front of the hall, facing the crowd. Queen Yuna sat on her throne behind him, watching with eyes that gave nothing away. A herald stepped forward and raised her hand for silence. The human will now give his answer to the Queen's proposal. The hall fell quiet. Not a whisper. Not a breath. Do-hwan looked out at the sea of alien faces. He saw the Vorthani warriors glaring at him with hatred. He saw the Dominion Prince smiling cruelly, certain that the human would fail. He saw the collective swarm pulsing with eager anticipation. He turned to face Queen Yuna. I am not a prince or a warrior, he said, his voice carrying through the hall. I have no power, no wealth, no special abilities. I am just an ordinary human who got lost looking for his quarters. Someone in the crowd laughed. Others joined in. Do-hwan continued. But I know what it feels like to be alone. I know what it feels like to want someone to see you for who you really are. I know what it feels like to hope for tomorrow, even when yesterday was hard. He walked forward, up the steps toward the throne. Guards moved to stop him, but the Queen raised her hand, and they stepped back. You asked me if I would accept you, Do-hwan said, standing before her. I do not know if I am worthy. I do not know if I can make you happy. I do not know what the future holds. He reached out his hand. But I know that when I sat with you in that garden, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And my grandmother told me that when you find that feeling, you should hold on and never let go. Queen Yuna stood from her throne. She was so much taller than him, so much more beautiful, so much more powerful. She could have had anyone in the galaxy. She took his hand. Then, it is decided, she said, and her voice rang through the hall like a bell. Do-hwan of Earth, I accept you as my mate. The crowd erupted again, but this time the anger was mixed with awe. Some species cheered. Some protested. But no one could deny what they had witnessed. A human had been chosen by the Queen, and he had chosen her in return. The wedding ceremony took place 1 week later. It was broadcast across 3,000 worlds. Beings who had never heard of Earth watched as an ordinary human stood beside the most beautiful creature in existence and exchanged vows of partnership. Do-hwan wore simple clothes. He refused the elaborate robes offered to him. I want her to see me as I really am, he explained. The same person she met in the garden. Queen Yuna smiled and wore a dress of white light. Together, they looked strange and wonderful. In the years that followed, humanity's status in the galaxy changed completely. They were no longer the young species that no one cared about. They were the species that had produced the Queen's consort. The species whose culture had taught him the kindness that won an immortal's heart. Other species began studying human philosophy and art. They read human poetry and listened to human music. They tried to understand how such a short-lived, fragile species had produced something that an Alandari queen had valued above all else. Doan never became powerful in the traditional sense. He refused titles and armies. He refused to make political decisions. Instead, he remained what he had always been, a kind man who listened to people's problems and told stories. About cherry blossoms. Queen Una smiled more often. She laughed more easily. She began to visit the garden where they had first met, sitting by the fountain and remembering how a lost human had offered to help her find her way. When journalists asked Doan the secret to their union, he thought about his grandmother Yunji, who had passed away peacefully 2 years after the wedding, surrounded by love and flowers from 1,000 worlds. "I just treat her like a person," he said simply. "That is all anyone really wants." The Queen of Beauty and her human mate lived together for many years. They faced challenges and problems, as all couples do. The galaxy did not always accept them. Some species never stopped hating the human who had won what they could not, but they faced everything together. And every spring, on the anniversary of their first meeting, Doan would tell Una about cherry blossoms on Earth, how they bloomed for only a few days before falling like pink snow, how something could be beautiful precisely because it did not last forever. Una would listen, as she always did, and think about how strange the universe was, how the most powerful being in the galaxy had found her match in a lost junior diplomat, who had wandered into her garden with nothing to offer but kindness. Perhaps, she thought, that was exactly as it should be. Some stories are not about power or beauty or conquest. Some stories are simply about two people who saw each other clearly and decided to hold on. This was their story, and it was more than enough.